Happy Friday, everyone. It is round 6. We are here to talk about some fantasy football. My name is Warnie, and I'm the coach of the Warn Dogs, and I've got Drew Jones with me.
We're coach of the Mountain Goats and host of the Goat Fantasy Podcast. Warnie, how are you today?
Good. Probably better than what we were this time last week, mate. We worked very hard last week at Gather Round, and, well, Friday we got through what we needed to do, and Friday night turned into a little bit of a large one, mate. I think it was Friday, wasn't it? I'm trying to do the maths of the days. They all blurred into one.
Friday night. Yeah. The vodka raspberries were an interesting choice by you, but they ended up being quite popular.
They helped, I'm sure, in some way. My highlight, though, was we were sitting around at the pub, and this guy came up and was like, "Oh, g'day, Warnie, Roy and Cow. It's so good to meet you," and all this sort of stuff. And then the small talk, and go, "Oh, I love the podcast, but I love the goat." And then you're just sitting there as well.
I was literally right next to him. Yeah, he said he liked the Friday pod, this is the Friday pod. So, and I've been trying to work this out, and hopefully he's listening. There was the young guy who was the Norwood Premiership player in the sample. Remember, he came over and he was chatting to us. He had the tattoo, the Red League tattoo. I've literally gone through their last Premiership team, looking at all the photos, trying to work out who it was, because he was a real nice fella. So, yeah, if you're listening, mate, get in touch because, we can talk fantasy.
Gather Round was bloody awesome. Cannot wait for next year. But we are now into round 6, and we saw our first game of the round last night, and that was Carlton going down once again. Big second half loss in the sense there to the Pies. Nick Dacos, 128 for those people that made in the VC. That's a pretty simple choice to roll in with that, but bloody oath he was good, and he didn't even want to sit in that second half.
Incredible stuff, wasn't it? That he got 27 fantasy points and 40 Supercoach points in the first 4 minutes of the last quarter. Like, it was
epic.
Absolutely insane. And even when he went forward, he continued to score. Like, it was crazy. He played well all night, but he went into beast mode and got Collingwood that win at the start of the quarter. I think this game is going to end up being known as the Elijah Hollands game, unfortunately. And initially when a player gets towards the end of a game and hasn't had a stat, it sort of becomes like this, a big thing, particularly on social media. But obviously Elijah's not in a great space, so hopefully he's going to be okay. Looks like he's had some sort of panic attack or anxiety episode. Hopefully he's feeling okay today.
Hopefully everyone's getting around him and making sure that he's all right, because that's the most important part of this. I don't think we need too much more discourse on social media around that, from my opinion. So, well, let's have a look at some of the other players. Dan Houston, he was getting busy. He had 12 marks there and racked up 110, which was nice after probably those couple of weeks where people are questioning the decision that he was that must-have. Josh Dacos had a ton and then gave away that free kick at the end to get him back to a 97. But the story for the Pies was those that jumped on Angry Anderson and those who may not have, like me, and I will definitely be looking for him next week. 78 he had. He was great tackling. Maybe his disposal may not have been the most epic, but that's not what we care about too much in fantasy football. But he had a massive crack, and I think he should keep his spot there as well. And while he'll probably gain another 80-odd K or whatever it is, I think we need to have him in our side to keep that cash gen ticking.
Really interesting, isn't it? Like, he was on 17 at half-time, and he'd been really quiet in the first half. And, there's always the sicko in you that looks at that, and you're like, oh, I'm glad I haven't got him. And, But he was very good in the second half. And I think that was also Noah Long's best game of the season. So there's is there room for both of those in the team once De Goey's back? And once Sidebottom's back, how are they going to play all that? That's an interesting one for me. I would have said after last week that Anderson had almost pushed ahead of Noah Long, but I think Noah was good last night. So, yeah, it's interesting to see what Collingwood prioritise. I think they went into that game last night against Carlton knowing Blues are a great contested stoppage team. Like, it's probably good to have another, bull in the midfield in there. Is that their play long term? I'm still not sold on Anderson's job security long term. But if he can nail down a spot in that team, he's going to make a lot of money, because when you're getting CBAs, when you're laying tackles, I feel like that's such a great baseline for for reasonable fantasy scoring. So he could potentially make us a fair bit of coin.
Yeah, points were definitely there for the Pies as well. That's sort of one thing that we certainly saw throughout the game. They had 1842 altogether, so that's up there in the upper end of what teams score. The other part of that too is that they did bring in Ed Allen there as well, Will Hayes. They probably didn't set the world on fire. So, yeah, we'll see what that looks like for Anzac Day the next week. For the Blues, so Sam Walsh had 107. He had a pretty good game in the end because I think he had the last three quarters were all 30 plus, so that was a win for fantasy with a 107. Nick Newman was on fire early on too. He was just doing everything he could. And probably looks like almost that little bit of a must-have. Obviously went a lot quieter in the second half, so he went a 40, then a 15 and 6 points there. That was probably when the game changed a little bit, especially in the last quarter there for the Blues. And then the other talking point, I guess, out of the Blues is Jagger Smith. So scored a 64. Now, you played the loop game with him. Will you take a 64?
Yeah, I mean, Blamires against the Tigers, I think you could roll the dice there. I mean, ultimately, what's it going to be? It's going to be 10 or 20 points, maybe. And Blamire's average is about 67 or something. So I don't think this is not going to be a game changer, this decision. But there's no doubt that he's an expendable player now, isn't he?
Yeah, Frico tweeted as well. He had 43 minutes on the bench last night, including 20 minutes in the final term. So that was one thing as you do, you're watching the bench matchups as well on your little live scoring things. So, yeah, he said he started quarter four on the bench, then came on at 10 minutes, then was off at the 25-minute mark. So he sort of spent, some important time riding the pine as well. So he might be one of our first actual upgrades or downgrades of what we're working with the rookies, which may have been a little bit of a surprise for some of us, I suppose.
Yeah, he still made a buttload of cash.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, for those who are looking at Anderson, could you go Jagger to Anderson next week?
You could, depending on what you're holding from some of these other injuries as well, which is going to be a talking point as we get...
I won't be doing that.
As we get stuck into these teams. So let's get started with tonight's game. Well, tonight's games, because we've got two of them going on. I assume you're heading down the highway to GMHBA Stadium for Geelong and the Western Bulldogs?
Can't wait. Yeah.
Excellent. Jack Martin's in with Paddy Dangerfield and the Blix as well, which is great for his milestone there. Brad Close has been managed, Mark O'Connor suspended, and then Brian Myers with that knee injury. So we saw he had a fitness test a couple of weeks ago and probably didn't perform as well as we might have wanted him to last week, and now he's out injured. Just quickly for the Dogs, we do have Connor Butterick, who is out injured with that hammy 3 to 5 weeks, as they've named up there. Harvey Gallagher's also injured with Josh Dolan omitted. Jax comes back in, which is great story for us. Tom Liberatore is in with Will Lewis as well. So Ed Richards is still in the side after there's some doubt on him, so that might be a watch there on AFL tonight. But also means that Tim English, despite reports earlier in the week that he may have been good to go, sounds like that might have been even pushed out a little bit further.
Yeah, interesting storyline, isn't it? Like Gabbo doesn't report on speculation, so as a rule. So I certainly trusted that there was some thoughts at the Dogs early in the week that Tim would be available. So someone said to me that the knee injury that he had wasn't dissimilar from the one that Bailey Dale had in the preseason, and Dale was able to play, like he missed a practice game and then he played opening round.
Right.
But obviously as the week has gone on, he wasn't able, like in that Wednesday main session, he just wasn't able to get through it correctly. So, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Where the way that Bevo sort of said, "Oh, now we don't know. It could be any time." Is interesting. But I mean, if you held him, that sucks. But there wasn't a world where many of us really thought that it was a good decision to hold him when he initially hurt his knee. So Ed Richards will have a fitness test, I assume, tonight. Libba back. So the Dogs, look relatively strong. And the Brian Myers knee concern, it's not a massive surprise, I don't think. He hasn't played very well the last couple of weeks. And I guess they've just got to a point where, it's not getting better and he's not feeling comfortable. So we can chase up more information on that this evening to get a better idea. But So there's been some teams out there who have had 3 forwards this week go out. Like that is insane. And if you throw in the fact that Jordan Dawson isn't able to play, there's 6 forced out from, probably potentially quite popular fantasy players. It's amazing situation.
Yeah, and so this is where we see 2 of those forwards. So your trigger would need to probably be pulled on those. With Gryan, would he almost be a hold outside of these other guys if you did have the decision, or would you just kind of use the cash? But yeah, where are you going to? That's probably the other question that comes with that.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because there are so many outs and there are now so many different combinations of players that you're missing. I guess you have to make that decision on, do you want to chase points this week?
Mitigating issues as well is another part of it. Like, if you aren't trading these forwards or whatever, what are you playing there when you've got some quality players on your bench, probably in the other lines? That's probably where a few decisions might be made there as well. What it might mean with sort of Libba back in there as well, a Riley Sanders who could have looked like an option. Maybe you're just passing on that one now. But yeah, out of this side, out of these 2 teams, we'll probably not really bring anyone in. I'm just hoping now that Lockie Jacks could actually give us a half-decent score with Butterick out. Obviously, he's been quite good because he hasn't really put a foot wrong when he's been playing. So hopefully he can be one that we can, I guess, safely start on field. Max Holmes played 100% in defence last week, so he's been named on the ball. So we'll see what that might look like as well. Could even be a nice vice-captain option if he did play that defensive role, because we know the Dogs give up plenty of points back there. All right, other Friday night game is the Derby in Sydney, which is the Swans and the Giants. So Sheldrick is in while Rampy has been managed. Harry Ralston comes in for the Giants with McMullen and Leclerc. Brent Daniels managed after he came back from his hammy. And then Cadman and Cornelio both out with concussion. So this should be a cracking game as well. I'm sure you'll get back home and switch this one on.
No doubt. I think the Sydney players we've been talking about this week are, is there a world where you can trust Chad Warner in the forward line, who clearly, when you look at what he's priced at, appears to be great value, but you and I have both owned him. You've lived the Chad roller coaster. And then Isaac Heaney, his last couple of weeks have just been absolutely electric. And is that a pace that he can continue to set? When he had his breakout year a couple of years ago, he was doing that almost every week. He's probably sort of regressed more to the norm. Are you chasing points too much if you're going after him? Maybe this isn't the week, unless you're doing a straight swap with Noah Anderson. And yeah, I think I'd be leaning towards Chad as a no. I think he's just better in real life, would be my view.
Well, I'm leaning towards Chad as a yes, because he's actually fitting for me at the moment with what I want to do. I'm surprising myself here, and I think part of it is I'm looking ahead to these buys, and I think that is a factor for me. The round 12 buy is tough for the forward line, and he doesn't have one of those. So that's part of my decision making. This is going to be a brain racking thing up until this 7:50 start tonight for me, I reckon, with what I do with, because the other one there is McInerney, who's been great as well. I think you're getting what you pay for him a little bit more, and that's where with Warner, I think that if I feel like he can go 90, which I think he can for the rest of the year, then he's sort of the value play if he can do that. But yeah, it's just that worry of those lower scores and what happens and what changes.
Well, this is the thing. Like, if you want to drill down on Warner here, high impact player and someone who can turn a game, who can win a game, so often demands attention, whether he's playing in the midfield or in the forward line. McInerney's a good player, but he's not as damaging. And that's why I think Warner has always struggled as a fantasy player, is because he always gets attention from the other team because of what he can produce. So, yeah.
Even that stat line last week, he needed 2 goals to sort of get a 91, which was, a bit of a worry there.
I like where your head's at. Like, if you're playing chess when everyone's playing checkers here, thinking ahead. But then if he drops like a 60 in round 12, you're like,
what's the point?
This was the week where I was supposed to be getting ahead. Yeah.
Which I learnt a lot from by not going Jack Sinclair because of that buy, and then everyone got that ton from Jai Sarong off the bench, and it was absolutely pointless to be going through that one. But that is the story of the Dogs. Also here, I guess, other things to look at in this game is, Roy's got a Phoenix Goddard there, so that's a nice little bench guy, and I reckon that'll be one of those ones where players at their F6 this week might become one of the most important positions, or one of the things that we are looking at, and you might get away with something there. So rookie roulette's going to be super real this weekend, and where we end up with that. Let's look at Saturday. The Suns and the Bombers, the mighty Bombers, after coming off a big W. Sardell Hawley comes in for the Dons with Jackson Pryor out managed. The Suns have Oscar Adams, Jake Rogers, Bailey Humphrey and Christian Petrarca back in. Alex Davis has been omitted, as has Goulburn, as has Closey, but Noah Anderson, as we know, with that appendix, is out. This is a super fantasy relevant game because we're seeing a lot of players that we are considering, that we're looking at, that we've got in our side. So let's just start with the Bombers then. The Archie Roberts one, how tempted are you?
If I didn't have so many other issues, then I think this would be a week where I would jump on Archie Roberts. And I think what we saw yesterday with Nasiah leaving the track, coupled with like tag flag that he has every week, I think there'd be a fair few coaches today who are now leaning towards Archie Roberts, and he just gets so much pointless ball, which doesn't hurt anyone. It is a fantasy coach's dream. And, the funny thing about this was that, he was in my team during the preseason for a long time, thinking that a halfback / midfield role would be so good. And it was just a disaster early in the year. And now that he's back playing that role again in the back line, he looks like a great pick. So good for you, Warnie. And I think that move makes a lot of sense from Zorko this week if you don't have other issues to fix.
Yeah. And is it too late to grab Jacob Farrow if you didn't do that? Would you be willing to pay over $500K?
Definitely not.
No.
It's not too late, but you just have to treat him as like he's a mid-pricer now, right? Like that's how you got to think about it.
All right, for the Suns then, we do get Christian Petrarca back, named smack bang in the middle, probably close to being ready last week. So I don't know if there's any doubts now that he is good for this week. So everything there looks right. The little, you get one on one shoulder, you get your devil there talking about, does he get managed time because he's coming back? But you do have Noah out. He probably was ready last week. He flew to Adelaide last week. So I think everything there is adding up to the right thing, that he's going to be okay. You're bringing him in because you can go bang, bang.
Yeah, so because I've lost Zorko and Noah Anderson, I've made the decision to cover Buderick and Devitt Robinson with two premium forwards. And to be honest, I would have had Petrarca as my target ahead of Cozzy. But because I'm doing both, because I'm getting two premium forwards, I'm going for both. So I don't have to make that choice. I think probably the reason, Warnie, is that I just believe that Petrarca is F2. So I just want to get this. I want to get the second best forward in when I have the chance. I was very close to starting Cozzy, really close, and I obviously regret that I didn't. But I'm glad that I had the opportunity to bring him in this week. I just think the matchup against Brisbane isn't necessarily going to yield results from him straight away, but I still think he's probably F3. So I'm just happy to just go both of them. But Petrarca's an absolute pro. I think he's rejuvenated on the Gold Coast, and a couple of weeks off, not banging into any bodies, I think it's not a bad thing for him. And then, I just don't think that we can trust that Noah Anderson's only going to miss 1 week.
Dimmer sounded more surprises. Dimmer sounded more hopeful, I think, rather than definitive that he'd be only a week.
I mean, an appendectomy is not a serious surgery, but it's still surgery. You're going into hospital, you're getting cut open, you're getting put under anesthesia, you've got to recover, and you're missing training. So there's a build-up of things. I just think it's very unlikely that he'll play next week. So I think, given that he's playing so poorly, I think it makes sense to get rid of him.
4:15 on Saturday, Hawthorn and Port Adelaide playing. Coucher Deer and Will McCabe comes in his debut with Jack Gunston out and Mubby Ochol out, so losing a couple of forwards there for the Port Adelaide Power. Dante Vicentini, so the R3ers getting back there with Christian Moraes. Jack Lacoche is out injured. Jack Watkins has been omitted, which might be a bit of a setback as well, just in this week of cover and players and all of that for people needing them. So my question is my man, Toddy Marshall. Wonder what that's going to be. He's been named in the back pocket, but, you know, with Lukosius out, we saw him flung forward. What that might mean in this one for us.
Yeah, I think the move would have been to bring in Brandon Zerk-Thatcher, and that would have probably triggered the Marshall move forward. So I think you're pretty safe. I think Marshall owners, you can trust that he'll play the majority of the game in defence, particularly with Hawthorn's relatively tall forward line. It has lost a bit of its height with Gunston and Chol going out. But yeah, I think you're pretty safe. I'm fascinated by the 2 ruck move, but I guess it makes sense to match up Reeves with Vicentini because they're sort of the 2 taller guys, and then Sweet with Meek as the 2 strong guys. But they've certainly deferred from what their plan was, Port Adelaide. So I'm interested to see how that pans out. But yeah, I think you're safe.
Right. Fingers crossed there. We're going to see Zach Butters maybe be a nice guy this week, but he'll be pretty up and about, I reckon. That's one thing we can see in this game. It should be a pretty decent contest, you would think, with Port Adelaide having the big week that they've had there. But Connor McDonald, would he be a forward option? Did you consider him? I guess you've got the cash to be doing your big dogs, but would he be in the mix for you with what he's done this year? Or do you feel like, I kind of feel like you're paying sort of what you're getting for him now because you've missed all that price rise from the start of the year?
Yeah, I think he's a great option. He's shown himself to be a really consistent fantasy performer this year. He's definitely elevated his game. He had a great preseason. He's not a ceiling scorer. He's just somewhere between 80 and 100-ish. Maybe pushing that 110 occasionally. I think he's a great pick. If that's what you can afford, then I think just launch into him, and I think he's a fairly safe sort of top, bottom end of the top 6.
What about Hornbag then? Similar.
Yeah, I think quite clearly and fairly we were turned off by his terrible preseason due to the foot injury. But I just think his class has probably shone through. He's just a good player, and he's found a way to impact games despite the fact that he's had a poor preseason. So I sort of worry that just at some point it's going to come back to bite him. That's why I'd be avoiding Francis.
And the last one, we better talk this forward while we're here, Darcy Byrne-Jones.
Oh, yes. So at the start of the week, he was in my team. But once I did that was when I would have been trading Butterick. And once I made the decision to trade Noah Anderson, it didn't make much sense to buy into DBJ. But I think I would go DBJ as a trade this week ahead of Bailey Williams, just because maybe I've seen too much, but I've watched 75 to 80 of Bailey Williams' 89 career games. So I know what you're buying into, and I just can't have it against Jackson this week. I know that the rucks have scored well against Fremantle this season, but yeah, that's too scary for me. So that's why I would say DBJ is the budget guy.
Adelaide and St Kilda play on Saturday night at Adelaide Oval, and we have Pedlar, Hugh Bond, Jordan Butts and Charlie Edwards coming in to debut, with Mitch Hinge out injured, Saligo injured, Borlase has been omitted, and Jordan Dawson out for personal reasons, thinking of him and his family in these awful times. And St Kilda have Stocker in with Alex Taru managed. So a few, and this is the forward theme, I guess. Rochelle, if you didn't have him, is he right at the top of the shopping list? Like, would you even have him ahead of like your Petrarca and Cozzy and launch there? Yeah,
I think there'd be a part of me that'd be wanting to take him on, to be honest, especially if you could afford
the big guys.
If you could afford a Petrarca, I think if you're trading into Cozzy, I think Kasai Pickett's going to be a very popular player, like highly owned, probably by the end of this weekend. But I'd be tempted to take Rochelle on. He is having a career year. He's in amazing form. He is fun to watch. He's a fun own.
It was pretty fun on Thursday night. I know your mate Zeitz loved it too.
Yeah, he was quite disgusted as I continued to celebrate the Rochelle goals. I guess the only flag for me would be as Rankin starts to hit his full match fitness, does he start to take some of that market share? That would be my only concern.
And so then on Rankin, would you be happy to go into him as well? I guess we've been talking all week about the fact that he has now bottomed out in price. He had that 111 on the weekend. Is it time to jump, or are there still enough concerns there that maybe he's not the guy?
My concern with Rankin right now is the same that I always have with him, which is that he has shown that he can be entirely tagged out of a game. And that's very scary. You know, the prospect of a 30 in your forward line when he's supposed to be a premium. That's tough right now because you're buying him at a budget rate. Perhaps, you know, you can argue that you're getting what you pay for. So, yeah, it's definitely a risk. It's a roll of the dice. But, you know, we only saw a couple of weeks ago he got a 20. So that sort of scares me.
Philippou at 5.49 was someone I had a little bit of a look at. Could be interesting if you did have to shop in those areas and you didn't have anything, because I think his role has looked a little bit better.
Role is good. Has shown no ceiling whatsoever. Yeah. But if you're keen on a 75, I think he'll get that for you. Sunday
footy, North Melbourne and Richmond. This is the game that we saw Shees go big in last year. Constanti, Pink, Scott and Doveston are into the squad with Banch omitted, so that might open the door up there for Doveston as we get these teams at 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon. Richmond, Hugo Ralston, Samson Ryan, Patrick Rechko may debut as with Pekka and also Kane McAuliffe into the side. Luke Trainer's been omitted. Jacob Hopper has been managed there. All right, what are we looking at here? Sheezel, captain.
Yeah, this is interesting, isn't it? Zita is at the Adamuzze presser today, and I have no confidence in him whatsoever to ask any question that would be helpful to fantasy players. I just can't have the idea that Richmond will allow Harry Sheezel to again
54
make them look silly with 54 disposals. I can't have it. So I would only be seeing Sheezel. I just think surely someone is going to go to him just to stop that. It was a bit embarrassing, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think so. You can't see it happening.
David Zita he's standing outside, he's watching, but he's not doing anything. Come inside.
Come on, give us some Zita sauce.
I don't want you to. I just want to ask you a question, just because we were just talking about Adamuzze.
I just spoke to him.
Yes. Did you ask about Harry Sheezel and how he got 54 disposals against them last time? No. Whether they'll put any work to Shees?
That's last year, mate.
So you didn't ask about tagging Sheezel?
Well, mate, I don't look at everything through the lens of Supercoach and fantasy. Some of us just look at it through objective lenses, and I don't worry about that.
Don't you think that's a relevant question, though, that he basically embarrassed them last time they played?
So you could have texted me and just said, hey, David, can you just ask him about this? You could have done that, but you didn't.
That's true. Okay.
So maybe just take some responsibility that you didn't ask me. And just try and help me. We're a team. So why do you bring me in here to attack me? Like, why?
I just asked the question.
I thought Zeets might have been on the payroll for Goat Fantasy.
You didn't think it'd be a good idea. You know, you're doing it in a way that's just mean.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Off your pop.
Yeah, no worries, mate.
Thanks, Zeets.
See you in the car.
Hey, all good. Can you keep using our studio? Because they wanted to know if I could do a cross.
I can jump out whenever you need it, mate. Whenever you need it.
No, you're good. You enjoy that. It's all right. Okay. See you, mate.
Farewell.
What a legend. No, he does enjoy his fantasy football, as I learned over in Gather Round, that he was disgusted by you across the weekend.
He's disgusted by everything I do. So my view would be, there'd be some risk associated with it for that reason. But yeah, I mean, we're also paying this huge price for Sheezel, and at some point you feel like you want to, use that investment to be a captaincy option. Yeah, so it's a tough one, isn't it? Because Max Gawn presents as your potential captaincy option on Sunday, but then no one scored well against the Brisbane Lions ruck setup. So yeah, it's a conundrum, isn't it?
It is. Out of that as well, Colby, he was looking okay last week as well. So if you've got him, hopefully he can be good in this matchup. And Blamires is the other one there. He's going to be part of this rookie roulette of what he scores, I guess, and to see where he might sit at in that one as well. Melbourne.
Yeah, Blamires and Grill, there's a few.
Melbourne and Brisbane into the squad. We have Kentfield, Max Heath maybe in to help out Max. A couple of Melbourne supporters said they may go a dual ruck this week, but we'll see. And Xavier Taylor has been named to debut. They also bring in Henderson, Jefferson and Bill Laurie into the squad, with Melksham out injured, Salem out injured as well, which is another one that could be a bullet for coaches, and Tom McDonald omitted. The Lions have lost Dane Zorko with that calf into the squad. Answorth, Tunstall, Shadow Brain and ZZ Top.
Ooh, that'd be nice.
It would be.
I
need him for a loop, actually, to be honest.
Oh, fair enough. Zorko's a blow. That was like when I was fiercely hungover on Saturday, as you were as well, just seeing him out of the game with a calf. The Lions said to me that they were really worried it was going to be quite a bad one, and I think Fags even sort of intimated that post-game. So to get away with 2 or 3 in your draft leagues is a good result. But obviously, I think he's a. You
just got to get out of it now, even if it was a 1 or 2 weeker. I think you just get out of it anyway, just to know that you don't have that issue moving forward. In this one too,
you
obviously,
don't want to be sweating on that.
Cozzy was the one that is a popular player this week to be getting in. You've gone, if you had that toss of the coin, and this I might have to just listen to you because you are the smart man here, and go with Petrarca over Cozzy.
I just think they're both great options, though, Warnie. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, you should go Petrarca. Like, the part of the reason that I initially had Petrarca as my number 1 target was because, like, I've slipped 30,000 ranks since round 1. So, I'm just going I'm going a gun player who perhaps isn't the sexy trade target this week, just on the off chance that he pops a 120 and, I get that weak head start on the rest of the competition.
Because we'll all want him at some point anyway.
That's right. We're going to bring him in, and you could make the argument that you wait until after his bye, but that's a long way away. That's potentially 6 tons away. So I think I was like, I'm just going to launch into him as a gun.
Kitty Coleman could be an option too in defence if you are looking there. But in defence, we also have Caleb Windsor. There could be issues here named on this extended bench.
Yeah, he's been disappointing. Everyone got that 90 from a couple of weeks ago if you held on to him, but that's been the exception, not the rule. Just a high impact player, and I think he's going to end up being a good AFL player, but he's still young and he's still learning that role. So it seems like there's a fair few coaches out there who are trying to get off him and say hold one of their injured players.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair enough if
it allows you to do what you need to do.
A place to go.
It's tricky with the forward line.
I think it's the right time.
Tricky with the forward line where it's at. I think he's definitely a priority to move when you can. Anyway, that's probably the thing. Final game of the round is the Derby. Your Eagles up against the Dockers. Matt Flynn comes into the squad with Marek Cripps. Murdoch is back with Elliot Yeo as well. Dev Robb with that ACL, which really sucks for him after getting his opportunity now to show his wares in the guts at the Eagles. And Jack Graham out injured. That looks like a pretty decent one, doesn't it, for Graham?
Yeah, I saw at training he was off to the side, and the training vision I was watching during the week. But it's a shame. It's probably, when you think about the fact that Dev Robb's not playing, and which is unfortunate, and pretty crappy situation with Graham out now. There's some midfield clock for Murdoch potentially on the table. The only thing is that the Eagles are so bereft of small forwards. Milan has played that pressure forward role really well. You might get a bit stuck there. So maybe like an Elijah Hewitt or someone like that gets a bit of a bump in the midfield. But, I think we're all sort of talking about the Bailey Williams situation.
Yeah, so do you think Matt Flynn will stay in? Because, for the Eagles then, for the Dockers, apologies, they have brought in Mason Cox, and it sounds like he will play, as will Hayden Young, also into the squad, O'Driscoll, Walker, Frederick. Sean Darcy's out with a concussion, and O'Meara. I don't know if you saw the pictures of his face too, because it is one of the best looking heads in the league, and he's copped all those facial fractures from training.
That was the first thing I thought when I heard about the fact that he'd copped a facial fracture. I thought, I hope he's okay, first and foremost, but also I hope his face is still as beautiful.
So now Flynn, do you think he'll play or not?
It's always hard, isn't it, when we sit here knowing that people are going to listen to this after the teams are finalised. I just don't think the rules suit Flynn I think Bailey Williams is a better matchup for Jackson. And ultimately, that's sort of the main matchup, isn't it? It's Williams v Jackson. So I don't think so. I don't think he'll play. The Eagles they'll lean on Archer Reed and Cooper Duff-Tyler to do that extra work, which I think has suited everyone pretty well so far this season. But yeah, I just wouldn't be buying into Bailey Williams this week. I think playing at Norwood last week, extra tackles, extra stoppages on a small ground, playing against like a three-gamer. I just think that was just the perfect storm for him to get a great score. And we discussed this last Friday, I think. The notion of a number one ruckman being guaranteed 80 points, I think that's over. I think that's gone. So I don't think you can buy into Bailey Williams expecting that he's just going to get you an 80 every week.
Yep. All right. Well, that's the weekend of games. Exciting stuff. We've got a pretty decent weekend here and a lot of decisions to make. It is all about patching those holes, making sure you've got probably the best players you can and making those decisions, not necessarily always for this week, but with a little eye on the future as well, because it might be if you did need to take a small hit this week to make your team better, that can be part of your thinking as well, which I think has got to be definitely part of it. Like, maybe getting the Angry Anderson last night and playing a Lombard might have been a good call for you or whatever it is along the way. But good luck with what you need to do. The Goats, they are bringing in the two big forwards.
Yeah, Cozzy and Petrarca. And I'm just making a plea to the fantasy gods to have mercy, to look after us this week. For those who are carrying through injured players, such as myself, at least just get to next week without any more bullets, please.
So next week, you have already got loaded up there. Who do you need to move? Dev and Butterick?
Buddha.
Yep. Right. Well, the Warn Dogs, I'm going Butterick out with my old mate, Dane Zorko. They're going out. And at the moment, it is Warner in. And then it is the coin toss between Cozzy and Petrarca. And I think I'm more leaning towards Petrarca now. The only issue I've got is that round 12 bye, which keeps sitting in the back of my head. But, hey, who knows? You were very good at thinking that, what if he scores a 60 in that round and all those sorts of things with a certain player. So maybe the call is just to go Petrarca because I do see him as closer to the top.
Please do not base your decision on what I've said. I am ranked 35,000.
Well, I don't have any sounding boards to get off at the moment.
I'm a Jai Caldwell owner.
So where
anyone who owns Caldwell.
Where does he rank in your trade out targets?
Don't listen to anyone. Oh, he's at the top.
You might be able to get that done by round 12 or something like that. All right. Thanks, Drewy. Appreciate that, mate. Good luck this weekend. Hopefully we do get some luck from the fantasy gods. All right. Let's go.
On you, mate.